Okay.
And in the last 7 years, I've been involved in a couple of citywide initiatives, not to kind of drag the issue back, but back in 2009, following the Mark Bamo shooting, and which you can follow, you can check on the internet and find news clips from 23 News and 17 News. I organized a Kenyan nonviolence training where I invited clergy and the community, and I had a protege. And what I mean by a protege is someone who was mentored directly by Dr. King, who had worked with Dr. King in organizing the Poor People's Campaign in Chicago. The man by the name David Jensen, who is in his mid-70s now, and they still hold him high. He's one of my mentors. Actually, I'm on the phone with him every so often.
Really?
And he flew out to Rockford just to see how can we build a community that seeks to transform conflict using the principles of nonviolence. And since 2009, I have been kind of plowing away, slowly plugging in slowly, and seeing what else can we do. And as a result of that, I have been privileged to kind of direct what we call, to lead a center called Center for Nonviolence and Conflict Transformation, a 501c3 incorporated in Rockford, Illinois, with the goal of taking the message of nonviolence and applying it in the context of our community, and not just nonviolence. It goes beyond just philosophical ideas. It goes into practical. And one of the first approach we did in using the Center for Nonviolence is, you know, if for those of you that have read the news, have followed Boko Haram's, the radical Islamic group in northeastern Nigeria. What I've done is taken the same message, and I've invited a couple of Nigerians, Christians and Muslims, who flew to Rockford.
Oh, they flew to Rockford.
For 1 week of intentional training on what it means to apply the principle of nonviolence in transforming their conflict. Right now, their community is experiencing, following this training, they've gone back and are implementing this idea of nonviolence and winning the enemy over. Instead, you see, the nonviolence approach does not see the other as the enemy, but to look at what is the condition that creates such an individual. And so they are applying that, and a part of what we seek to do is, because the component is education. So as a group, as the Center for Nonviolence, we converted or retrofitted a bus in Rockford, converted it into a mobile library, and schools that my kids attend, one of the public schools in Rockford, actually did a book drive, and another Lutheran school did a book drive and filled a 20-foot crate container, and we shipped along with the bus to educate people from northeastern Nigeria. But that's a far distant work, but we have a local approach, a local component, and the local component is what we are currently working on, the project called the Mobile Lab.
Right.
And you know, when we talk about a lab, there's multiple stuff that happens in a lab. A lab, from a scientific point of view, you know, I'm not a scientist by any nature, but I know you can do a lot of trial before rolling out. So we are creating this mobile lab, and inside the mobile lab, we will have a computer programming, graphic design, app development studio. And on the other side of the lab, which is in the same bus, we will have a music recording studio. And using these two different aspects, you know, there's so much creativity out there in our community.
Right.
And the reason why young people find themselves kind of, the cat stacked against them, is simply because there is no outlet. And when there's lack of outlets to put out those expressions, because not every young person, not everybody is cut out to be in the four walls of a classroom. And our creativity and giftedness can be expressed in different forms. So what we are doing with this mobile lab is we will take it to the community, to the projects, to everywhere, not just the minority community, but it is open to every community. We will drive the bus, and we will have trainers in graphic design, app development. Who tells you can become a multimillionaire from just selling a 99-cent app, either on Android or an iPhone. And those apps will teach kids from the comfort of their community what it means. But layered, the underground of all of this training, what will undergird this entire training, That's a nonviolence, the concept of nonviolence. Right. And we are beginning here in Rockford, Illinois, and my hope is that the community, and I like the fact that the Winnebago County is really backing this initiative.
Well, Dave is very supportive of what you've been talking about, and I don't know how far we're going to go, but we're going to try to get behind it, because I like what you're talking about with this nonviolence, because you know, education is the key to somebody turning their lives around. If a person has a good job, I always say this all the time on my show, when you have a good opportunity to earn some good money, you got a good education, you tend not to want to do things that would hurt yourself or anybody else, because the alternative is jail, prison, something like that. So I like what you're talking about with these labs. Also, you talked about training kids in web design and things like that. So if they got the training from you, they'd probably be able to go on and get a better education, because they would have learned things from your labs, and then they could, you know, further their education.
You know, the interesting thing is we are not a certificate
Right.
granting organization, but what we are doing it, we're serving as a bridge
Right.
that breaks the barrier that says I cannot to saying I can.
Right.
That invisible barrier that has been set up, that this kind of thing does not fit with me. I tell you, I've traveled around our community and I've got some young talents. Here's a story. And this year's Martin Luther King Day, I was privileged to preach at a church that Dr. King preached at in Chicago, Illinois, in East Garfield Park in Chicago. This is the very church that Dr. King used as his organizing office back in 1962 and 63 when he started the Poor People's Campaign. And in this church, I picked a young man, Vincent from Rockford, who used to be homeless, but thank God he's found a place to stay. And he is so gifted musically, in rap music. And I just said, you know, there's got to be a way to help champion this young man's gift and talents. I took him to this church in Chicago, the church I was preaching, at a combined Dr. Martin Luther King service on Sunday morning. And he got to sing and do some performance. And I tell you, I could see from his expression, and he even said it to me, I have never thought I can do this. And funny enough, or fortunately, he grew up in that community, but he's been out in Rockford and being homeless, and so that became an impetus for reconciliation. His parents that he has not seen for over 6 years actually showed up, and his mom was bawling her eyes,
at that
crying.
church?
Yeah, at
Showed
that
up in
church,
Chicago?
yes.
Oh, okay.
And she was crying that she cannot believe that something good, that God can get a hold of her son. And it's simply because looking at the potential of using the principle of nonviolence to attract young people and using their giftedness and skill.
Right.
And so right now I'm working with this man to send him to a recording studio so that we can see if we can start marketing some of his songs on iTunes and help him. I don't have to market it, he can market it himself, and the proceed goes directly to him. Yeah.
Now, when you were in my office earlier today,